I've always wanted to do this. It is 3:40 a.m. in Atlanta right now, and I guess now is the time. Um, and when I say I've always wanted to do this, I've always wanted to just talk. But I really have never known what I wanted to talk about, what I care about, or even what I care for other people to know, especially in like a long format where it's nothing that's just like really quick, but something that I've put a lot of thought into. Um, and so I guess now is the time for me to give it a shot. Here we go. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to get the sound correct. I don't know how to get the visuals correct. I don't even know how to keep my phone notifications from buzzing. So I don't know, you might hear that, maybe not. But I'm going to do it anyway because I feel like if I don't, then I'm just never going to do this. Um, so this year has been crazy for a lot of people, obviously. Everyone's talking about 2020 and all of the events over the year. Right now, we're in December and we're at the home stretch, even though I don't feel like that's something to look forward to because that's not realistic. That's not how the world works. We're not going to hit January 1st and then everything is just better now because it's no longer 2020. And so I have been just striving to find ways to cope or find ways to just feel better about a lot of things. And so in my little chat here, I'm going to do my best to avoid focusing on all of the negative things that have happened this year. If you know me personally, you'll know that just on top of it being a horrible year for everyone, this year has just been a whole nother level of not the best. And so I just want to begin focusing on a quest to find things that make me happy. Now, I will say that I'm the type of person that does not have a hard time being happy or being happy alone. Or I guess what I'll say is that I always have had this bucket, this vocabulary of things that I could always reach into that I know no matter what will make me happy. And the reason why this year, well, this is not the sole reason, but on top of all of that, this year has taken away a lot of those things. I can't reach out to do all of the self-care things that I normally do because we just don't have access to all of those things anymore, especially one of the biggest things, which is travel, which I feel like a lot of people feel that way right now. And I don't know, I've just had to figure out how to find a new way to refill my bucket or how to bring back my authentic, inspired, creative, happy self. And for most of the year, I thought that I was just sad, which there were times where I was sad. There were things that happened that just made me sad or made me feel depressed or made me feel anxious or just made me not feel good overall. There were people who didn't make me feel good. There were events that, made me feel horrible. But for the most part, what I realize now is that, yes, there were some sad things, but I wasn't necessarily sad. I think my creativity was sad, or maybe my imagination was sad because creativity is easy to come by, but imagination, not so much, or the things that fuel your imagination. And so I'm just going to backtrack a little bit because I think it makes a lot of sense for me to introduce myself. So, hi, I'm Denise. I am a user experience product designer focusing on digital software. So basically, I design software and make sure that that software is a good user experience for the people that need to use it. Along with that comes visual design, strategic design, um, all of the things that you need in order to create a product in terms of software and to ship it out to people. Um, but now that I've introduced myself, I want to backtrack a little bit to this whole idea of creativity versus imagination because I started off saying that my creativity was sad and then kind of rolled that into my imagination is sad, which I think is the actual truth. Um, so all of the things like travel, getting a foot massage, being around friends, sketching in public, uh, going shopping in person, and not only shopping, but just like window shopping, even just going out and looking at things, seeing people walking around, um, seeing what people are wearing when they walk around, seeing art that you happen upon in the streets or seeing a beautiful sunset or just seeing other people happy in general, all of that is kind of not here right now. And I feel like I'm probably forgetting things, but I feel like those are some of the things that kind of fuel or feed my imagination. So we think about creativity. A lot of people like to say, oh, you're a creative or you're a creative person, which I almost don't even like the term a creative or an artist anymore because I feel like it applies to everything now. Whereas to me, the term artist really falls in line with a visual artist or like someone who makes things with their hands visually. Fine arts, that world. And these days, you mention the word artist, and now people think of like a musician, which is a musician to me. I guess it still is art. But anyway, the idea of creativity to me is people that find creative outlets and utilize them, right? So, for instance, someone might give me an adult coloring book. That's something that you would give to someone who is looking to be creative. However, that kind of bores me because I'm the type of person that's looking to be imaginative. So, in perspective, I would be the person that would want to design and make that coloring book, that adult coloring book from scratch. You know what I mean? And when I say adult coloring book, I'm not talking about like sexual things. I'm talking about something that was designed for adults that, not necessarily kids would use. So let's just go ahead and clear that up. But again, I'm the type of person that has the gift, I guess, to create things from my head, from the top of my head, from my imagination. And that to me is the difference of tapping into creativity versus being the type of person that is just imaginative and not only is imaginative, but needs to fuel that imagination in order to sustain. And I seriously mean in order to sustain. So in order to be a happy person, in order to carry on, to feel good every day, to wake up in the morning and feel like you've done what you were put on this earth to do. I'm that person. And I really think it's always been that way because I do feel like people that spawn things from their imagination usually are influenced to do so at a very early age. And that's how I feel like I was. I mean, when I was a kid, I, like other kids, had like a favorite color, but it was always different for me in my mind. It wasn't just, ooh, my favorite color is pink and purple because, that's what girls are supposed to like. Or my favorite color is red because my daddy's favorite color is red. It was never like that. It was like, my favorite colors are red, yellow, and green because they are very close to the primary colors, although they aren't the primary colors. And they are the colors that I see that toy designers use a lot, and which makes a lot of sense for the 80s. Toy designers did use red, yellow, and green for toys a lot. When you think about building blocks or alphabet blocks, a lot of the times back then, you would see those colors. Or if you saw things created by Fisher Price, maybe it would include blue, but it would always include those, primary colors: red, green, yellow, blue. Those were my favorite colors when I was a kid. And I think the more significant thing is that I knew why, and not just, I like that. And I think it spilled over into also me knowing what I like when I saw it. So being able to be that person who saw a TV show or a cartoon and liked it because it was visually appealing versus just a general thing that kids usually like. I feel like my taste was honed at a young age. And I would also say that, my family was a big part of that because I think they saw that in me as a child and not necessarily invested in it, but encouraged me in it. And so I feel lucky in that way to have had that. But the biggest thing that I feel lucky to have had as a child that really, I think, transformed my imagination into what it is today. And I've talked about this before on a podcast. I was about to say another podcast. This isn't really a podcast, but a podcast that I was on before where, my sister was always a super imaginative person, or I guess you could call it just like a creative person. But, my sister always had all of these amazing ideas of projects to do when we were young. So for instance, there was a point in time where we had a TV show and we would basically take my dad's camcorder. I don't even know if I get camcorder. Yeah, it was definitely called a camcorder back then, or video recorder. I don't know. Anyway, the big thing that you had to put the VHS tape in and video record things. And it was humongous. I remember one time my dad brought it to the zoo and he basically had to hold it on his shoulder the whole time and carry it around. And my mom was just annoyed because he was literally obsessed with it and would be filming or videotaping the orangutans for like 20 minutes. And we were like taking forever to get through the zoo. So anyway, we would use my dad's camcorder to make this TV show. And the name of our TV show was Opinions. And it was supposed to be about kids' opinions on things. It's so funny to even think about it now. We had the theme song was just opinions. And we would just say that over and over again. And there was no one really on the show. So we would have this whole cast of fictitious but real people. So we would basically take photos of all of our cousins and pretend like they were on the show, even though they never appeared. So we would take them and sort of create these jump cuts and take the photo frames and spin them out of frame and write their names on paper as if it was the titles coming in and out, which was really innovative as kids back then. And so all of that stuff really inspired me even to this day. And so with that TV show, I wonder if my parents still have the recordings or the videotapes or the VHS tapes. Anyway, my only job was to run the arts and crafts segment. Now, mind you, when we started this TV show, I was probably 5, maybe not even 5 yet. I don't know, but all I know is that I could read, but I couldn't read that good. And so my sister decided that, of course, I was over the arts and crafts segment and that it was up to me to teach everyone how to make paper mache. We had these children's encyclopedias that had all of these different subject matters. And one of them, I wonder if my mom still has these encyclopedias. But anyway, one of them was the arts and craft section, I guess. And so she flipped through it, thumbed through it, and just boom, here, you're going to teach our audience how to make something out of paper mache. Now, mind you, again, I could not read that well. So in the video, you hear me saying paper mashy because I couldn't read. But anyway, I was so excited to have my own segment, and, having this TV show wasn't the end of all of our adventures in making things. I remember we made a model of SeaWorld out of foam in order to raise allowance for our parents to give us money to spend at the gift shop when they took us to SeaWorld. I remember making a car out of wall paneling, like wood wall paneling, hot glue guns, a lot of hot glue, a scooter, roller skates, and jump rope. And it was awesome. Like every time it ended up being a thing where we made this car, we put our dolls in it and we would like pull them around, and it was a lot of hot glue, but it was probably one of the best summers that we ever had in making this thing. Like we spent every day that summer making this thing. And it's one of my fondest memories of just using my imagination and creativity as a kid. And so we made so many things. And another thought that comes to mind, or memory that comes to mind, is when we started making jewelry. And so we would make friendship bracelets. And this is now the 90s, where like these, hip hop medallions are into these like necklaces, these big round necklaces. I guess you would call them like the big jewelry blinged out pieces that rappers and whatnot wear now. But basically what we would do is take a piece of paper, draw some sort of artwork on it, take a cup or something and sort of like trace around the artwork and make a perfect circle. Then we would squeeze hot glue. Again, here's the hot glue again. We must have had just like a ton of leftover hot glue. But anyway, we would squeeze hot glue all over the paper, let it dry, and then use the line of the circle to cut out a perfect circle, put a hole through it, and then put, I guess, yarn as the necklace part, and we would make these medallions. And so we went to a little private school, very, very small private school in a very small town, which is where I grew up. And when we got to school, everybody like wanted a medallion or like a friendship bracelet, and like we even branched into doing drawings of what we thought you should wear or like what your outfit style was. And so we had these 3 products: the friendship bracelets, the medallions, and I guess styling, even though it was just like some sort of Barbie tool that we were using to do this styling. But anyway, we started making money. And it's a little cringy now just because I know that it was probably wrong to be taking kids' money back then, but whatever, we had a business to the point where it branched out into hiring our friends to sell. So we basically went and made these little boxes, these little clear plastic boxes that had inventory in it. And we would send out the girls during recess to make money. And what's crazy, the thing that was wrong about it was that they were not making a cut at all. And I remember one day we made $38, which is a lot if you are in a little teeny tiny private school where there's barely any students there in the first place. Like, how are you making $38 in one day? But we had a business, and I think once the school or my parents or somebody found out about the $38, the business got shut down. But either way, what I remember was just that feeling of you can make something out of anything and people would want it and would possibly even buy it. And so that took this whole like idea of like what I could do with my imagination to the next level. So I don't know. I always will think of all of the little projects that we used to do in my childhood as like the stepping stone into me really just wanting to be an artist more so than just like coloring in a coloring book. So now I'm in middle school, and this is the first time that I actually have an art teacher. So, an art teacher that's aside from someone who is just teaching you how to glue things together, or someone who is teaching you how to like use that little cheap watercolor palette or color things with crayons. Like, I really started to display artistic skills, I guess you want to call it, for a sixth grader during that time. And so my art teacher at the time recognized that and decided that she was going to push me a little further to try to do more things. So that was when I started to really take that cheap watercolor palette and make cool looking paintings, like for real looking paintings. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I can actually do this. And not only did she teach me what to do with like a watercolor palette, but that was the beginning of someone teaching me how to see things. So how to be observant, how to look at lines, how to put lines together, or how to study things like a face and decide where the curve needs to go, where the circle needs to go, where the line needs to go. That was the beginning of that. And it kind of taught me that this was something that I was going to want to pursue when it was time to move forward into high school. And so during that time in middle school, I guess I started to get opportunities that seemed really cool to me at the time, but they were just like regular things, like having your artwork displayed at the mall, or, you know, having your artwork displayed at the school's hallway, which felt like at the time, you know, having your artwork in a museum. And so I really wanted to push forward in just being an artist when it came down to high school. So fast forward, we're in high school now. Now is when I get to choose my classes. So we're not just moving from class to class in this curriculum that has been set up for us, but now I'm in a public high school. So I've moved on from private school, in public school for the first time, and I can actually choose my classes, which of course I start to choose art and ceramics and really start to decide that I want to make real things. And so this kind of pushed me into eventually signing up for AP art, which at the time, you know, other people were signing up for like AP geometry and AP history and AP calculus and all of these things that I was not interested in at all. I mean, I was already further along academically because I went to private school. So I just felt like any other push for me was going to be in art, which was a really good idea because my high school's art program was really, really good. My teacher knew her stuff. And now we're moving from learning about lines and shapes and color to studying color theory and mediums, what to do with oil paints and what to do with different types of pencils and pen and ink and acrylics versus tempera and watercolor and gouache and all of these things I had never heard of ever in my life, which really pushed me into deciding that I was going to be a visual artist as a career, right? Super exciting, I know. However, my guidance counselor was like, yeah, so no, because you're not going to make any money and you're just going to be a starving artist. So why don't we look in the occupational handbook and figure out what you should be? So I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess that makes sense. I definitely don't think that I should be starving. I'd like to make money. And I feel like my parents would be disappointed if I went into a career where I am just gonna knowingly not make any money. So I guess let's try something. So she was like, advertising. I think it will be advertising for you. And I'm like, okay, what's that? And she was like, good question. I've already set up career shadowing for you. You're going to be going to this advertising firm and you're going to learn all about advertising. And then that's what you're going to do. So I'm like, okay, cool. So the day comes where it's time to do the career shadowing. I get there, so excited. Now, mind you, I'm also an overscheduled kid. I've always been an overscheduled kid, meaning I am doing ballet. And if I'm not doing that, then it's choir or band, gymnastics, basketball, track, volleyball, cheerleading, baton, recorder, anything, you name it, I'm involved. Meaning that in the evenings, I'm staying up super late to get my homework done, right? And I'm usually carrying around a bunch of books because I'm trying to take advanced classes. So we get to this advertising firm and there's this girl. I don't remember her name. I vaguely remember what she looks like. And I can remember the environment, the room or the building, I guess, that we were in was super dark. Everyone was on their computers. And these two guys that own this advertisement firm, which is maybe like a city and a half away from my little city town, they introduced me to this girl that I'm going to be shadowing. They tell me her name, which of course I don't remember. And she's so excited to show me what she does. Now, mind you, there's two other people from my high school in this shadowing trip. Actually, I don't remember if they were from my high school or not. They might have been from like a surrounding high school or something. I don't know. Anyway, there's these two other people there. I think they were guys. Maybe. I don't know. All I know was that when it came down to her showing us what she did for a living, she basically opens her computer file and proceeds to design advertisements for the Yellow Pages for 8 hours straight. Now, again, remember, I'm that kid who has been up all night finishing their homework, meaning that I cannot keep my eyes open. I am bored to tears. She's not really saying much. She's saying things here and there, but for the most part, we're watching this lady design the Yellow Pages. And I don't know if there's any young people listening, watching, but the Yellow Pages are what we used before we had cell phones that had contacts in it. You would just open it up and find people so that you could find their phone number. And it was all public information, but it also had a section, which is the Yellow Pages part, that had all of the businesses. So business advertisements, business phone numbers, how you found businesses when you basically didn't have Google. So not only was it boring me to tears, but now it's lunchtime. And I'm like, oh, finally a break. Yes, lunch. They tell us that they're getting ready to order pizza from this amazing place around the block. Pizza is like known in the town for their amazing pizza, and it's so interesting, and we're just gonna love it. When these people opened up this pizza box, it was tuna fish pizza. So not only am I trying to stay awake, but I also am trying to eat this tuna fish pizza. I have nothing else. I'm starving. So now I'm hungry and tired, and I'm over it and pissed. And so not only do I tell my mom when I get home how it went, because they're all excited. They think that I found, what I should be doing for the rest of my life. I'm pissed. And I'm like, I'm never doing advertising ever. Now, I do understand that advertising is completely different from that. It can be more exciting and an amazing career. I've learned that as an adult. But then I was just like, absolutely not. Get me out of here. Let's do something else. So I go back to my guidance counselor when it's time to check in on how things went. And I'm like, hey, what else you got? Because that was a ball of trash. And there's no way I'm leaving here to do that for the rest of my life. It's just not happening. So she was like, cool, no worries. Flips through the occupational handbook again. And I'm like, here we go again with this book. She's like, I think what it is for you is going to be architecture. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like buildings? And she was like, yes. Now, it's way more creative than you think it is. Now, here we go again with that word creative. It's way more creative than you think it is. And I really think you need to give it a shot. Also, you're getting ready to graduate in like 5 seconds and you need to know what you're going to do for a living. So what I've done is I went ahead and set up architecture camp for you. So I'm like, okay, yeah, all right. And so my mom's like, hey, let's pack up your stuff. You're going to architecture camp. So architecture camp at FAMU was a way to sort of get like a head start for college. So I think we were there for 2, maybe 3 weeks. I feel like it couldn't have been longer than a month. It feels like we were there for a really long time, but it could have also been that we were just there for 2 weeks. I know it wasn't 1 week. I know that. So go to architecture camp and it is amazing. I am blown away. I had no idea that this is what architecture was. We were making all of these creative projects in order to understand function as well as design. And this is the first time that I had ever even thought of the word design as a thing. Like, I didn't even know what design really meant. All I knew was what art meant. And so we're doing things like building chairs out of cardboard that needed to be beautiful, but also hold a lot of weight, or creating things with pastels and drawing and sketching and just learning about art history and architecture history, and also just making friends, right? So that when it's time to get to school, this is Florida A&M University, FAMU. When it's time to get to school, you not only have like this head start, but you also have like this group of people, these friends that were a part of your architecture camp cohort to begin with, so that it's an easier transition into college as well as the School of Architecture. So I'm like, cool, this is perfect. I'm starting to gain a love for architecture in the sense of buildings and the way that they look and the way that they make a city feel and architectural style. And all of these things are just beautiful to me. So now we're here at freshman year, and the first thing that happens is they give you a list of supplies to go get. And I'm looking at this list and I'm like, this is my dream come true. It has Prismacolor markers, Prismacolor pencils, witch hazel, charcoal, all of the HB and 2B and all the different pencils and pens and ink and all of this stuff that actually was really, 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 really expensive, to the point where I actually had to have my sister call my mom and make a case for why I needed all of this stuff. And she took me to the art supply store and I got everything and was so excited to use them. I was actually almost afraid to use them because they felt so precious to me because they were so expensive, and I never had expensive art supplies ever. Even in high school, the art supplies that I had were supplied to me by the school, and they were just decent because it's high school, you know? And so I'm learning about like what good art supplies are and what this ruler does and what this paper and trace paper and how this all works and how you use tools to get the things out of your mind to create things. And for the first 2.5 years, I want to say, all of the projects were a dream come true. So it was sketching buildings and doing figure drawings out of charcoal and learning plan section and elevation, and not necessarily in a construction documentation type, but, you know, in a fine art sense. And I just fell in love with that part of things. I mean, of course, there were also general studies, but, you know, I felt like this is where I belong because I got to be an artist. And it carried further into the 3rd and 4th year. And now, mind you, every single year of architecture school, usually every semester, you go on some sort of trip. And this was feeding that travel side of me that is inspired by travel. So we would go somewhere and we would look at the architecture and learn about the architecture in that place and do sketches of the buildings and all of this and that, from Miami to Barcelona, Spain, to South Carolina, to all these places that are like rich with historic architecture, New York, all of these places, Atlanta, Tennessee, Jacksonville, just everywhere. And I just fell deeper and deeper in love with it. Now, mind you, there's a lot more to architecture, but I don't realize that yet. And so this even moves further into grad school. And right before grad school, I got a last minute internship in Atlanta for the National Park Service. And I'm like, oh, yes, finally, I get to actually work in architecture and see what it's like in the real world. Now, I get there and it's, again, a dream come true. I'm basically writing historic structure reports for historic buildings in architecture, which means basically you go and you look at these buildings and you determine what is the historic part, what is the new part, has it been kept up properly, all this and that. You're writing a report about what your findings are in these buildings, but also you're illustrating what you see. And so it's basically like creating an illustrated book, which I should have known then, is basically graphic design more so than architecture. But I'm writing these historic structure reports as well as illustrating the whole thing. And I'm just like, this is a dream come true. I'm so geeked and excited to get back to school to start grad school because I've graduated now and it's time to like really get serious about this. And now I need my master's degree so I can just take this to the next level. And, you know, they're telling me that I need to have something to fall back on in case, you know, I need to teach in the future, all of that. So I'm excited for grad school, complete the first year of grad school, get another internship. This time, not so fun. So I'm working for another company in Orlando, and essentially all I'm doing is taking the plan or the stamp of the plan, the blueprint, and retrofitting it to fit land. And I was like, I'm not really liking this, but I also have gotten kind of far. Literally only have 1 year left of grad school. So I'm not a quitter, got to push through, and, you know, maybe it'll get better. So I complete that internship, come back to school, and now it's time to write my thesis, which is another dream come true. I end up writing and creating a design for a memorial for sufferers of genocide. So at the time I was looking at, you know, what was happening in Rwanda and Sudan and all of that. And I was able to create this memorial to help people learn about what happened, but then also to help people find their loved ones. And it was really more of a art installation. And that's probably why I enjoyed it so much. But now I'm just super excited. I'm getting all of these awards for this thesis that I've written, all of these medals, and, you know, people are telling me that I should make it a real thing. And I'm just so excited to move into this next chapter of my life in the world of architecture. Now, backtrack to when I was at the National Park Service in Atlanta. That summer was a dream come true also because I just loved Atlanta. And so I didn't know it was going to go this way, but I started to find myself applying for jobs in Atlanta. And I'm just literally surprising myself because I never thought I would leave Florida. And so 2 weeks after graduation, I have an offer letter for an architecture firm in Atlanta. And my salary is the highest out of all of my classmates. And I just am on cloud 12 and so excited to really start this new adventure. So I pack up, I move to Atlanta. And because basically I just allowed my parents to have control over my mom, really, to have control over my finances, I had enough money saved up to buy a house. So I bought a house at 23. I just turned 23. And now I'm like living in this world of architecture and I'm on my own. I'm in a new state with really myself. I mean, I have family here, but to be honest, I'm really on my own. And so I start working at this architecture firm, and it's the saddest experience that I had in the professional world, period. People were mean, childish. It felt like I was in high school all over again, which aside from that, I really wasn't learning anything about architecture at all. What was happening was there were only certain people that were being honed to become architects or being kind of groomed. And so I just kind of found myself not really loving it. And I walked away from that architecture firm after being laid off due to the 2008 recession with just making a couple of friends and without learning anything. And so I'm starting to question, do I even like architecture anymore? And, you know, I'm the type of person that would never quit. So I do the right thing, which is apply for another job in architecture. And I get one pretty immediate. Like I would say within 2.5 weeks from being laid off, I had something else lined up, which gave me just enough time to have that 2 weeks before starting, before my severance package ran out. And then boom, I started the next job. So I'm working there and same, I'm just really not in the spirit of what architecture is. It felt more like I was being tested more often versus being taught. And I really feel like as a young person trying to be up and coming in architecture, I just didn't have someone who cared to almost act mentor like or even sponsor like for me to show any interest in my career. And so I got bored. And in the meantime, now backtrack, while I was in grad school, because, you know, my parents almost over my finances, what I started doing was making jewelry so that I could make some extra money. Fast forward back to this second gig in architecture, I'm really, really making jewelry now. And I need a way to sell it better. And so what I decided to do was teach myself how to design and build a website from scratch. And so this was my first Mac computer ever. And I got a Mac computer because they had this software called iWeb, which was supposed to be a super easy way to learn how to create websites. And so I would walk over to the mall during my lunch break, sit at the food court, and teach myself how to build websites. And I would be like ducking out to see if any of my coworkers would come in and watch me, and making sure that no one was telling on me for working on something aside from architecture, or like being excited about something aside from architecture. And so Long story short, I got laid off again because recession doesn't go away that easily. So, architecture is one of those ones that gets hit and no one has money to make buildings. They're not getting made. And so I got laid off again. But this time I looked at it as a positive opportunity to go do the right thing. So I went back to school. I know. I went back to school again for my second master's, which this time would be in graphic design. And I remember having a really hard time getting in because it's Savannah College of Art and Design, which is one of the top art schools, one of the top design schools in the world. And here I am with this architecture background trying to hone a career change on my own. So I come up with this portfolio. I go to the portfolio review that they have for people who are aspiring to apply for grad school there. And the person who would then become my professor later said, "This portfolio isn't strong. I feel like you need to just get another bachelor's. Like, why not just get another bachelor's? Why get a master's?" And I said, "Why get a bachelor's when I already have a master's and I can get a master's? You tell me what's wrong with this portfolio and I'll have it fixed by the time it's time to apply." And so he told me, and it was harsh. It was harsh, but I took the criticism and what I did. So the portfolio was due in 2 weeks. I set up my computer and I also set up a pallet on the floor next to my computer. And literally for 2 weeks straight, I worked on the computer, laid on the floor, took a nap, power nap, work on the computer, portfolio, bought portfolio books, bought portfolio idea books, made up projects, made up fake projects with fake brands, and did that for 2 weeks straight with some meals here and there in between and created a whole new portfolio. So when it was time to submit, it was reviewed by the same professor. And later on, during my thesis presentation, when I was getting ready to present for my thesis, he told my mom that he had never seen anyone transform their portfolio in such a short time, and that he really felt like I was one of the best designers he had ever seen come through the program, which is crazy to me because, SCAD graphic design is hard. Anybody that has gone to SCAD for anything knows that it is a hard school and they put you through hell to get through it. And so it was just surprising to me that that was his response. And when it came down to my overall review of, basically, let's review all your work. Are we going to approve you for graduation? The feedback that I got was, "You've proven to us that you can take this and make it your career. Now it's time to work on your confidence," which I was like, whoa, I've never had to be confident about art or design or show people or tell people that I really know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I've always done what I'm supposed to do, but really stepping into that world of confidence and saying, no, it should be this, or I know it needs to look like this. And I know that for a fact because I trust myself. I trust my eye. I trust my education. All those things was something that I was now being told that I needed to work on, which I have done. And so that was how I moved into the world of design. Now, the funny story is my second quarter at SCAD, before graduation and all of this, I am in the computer lab and I'm just tweeting about how hard school is. And we're going to this presentation and so-and-so is coming to our school to present or speak or whatever it was. I think it was Kelly Catrone, the fashion stylist, designer extraordinaire. She came to our school and she was talking about how you have to wear all black every day as a designer. And I was just going in on everything that she had to say, even though it was really, really inspiring. And so I was rampage tweeting about it. And, long story short, this is going to have to be a story for another day, but a couple years earlier, I had the opportunity to make some jewelry for India Ari, the singer, songwriter, Grammy Award winner, amazing vocalist, amazing everything to do with music. And so I'm on a rampage tweeting. And for those of you that don't know, India also attended Savannah College of Art and Design. I believe with a major in jewelry making and a minor in art history. I feel like, I don't know. I hope I'm not making that part up, but I feel like that's what it was. And so we've always had this connection with like jewelry and design and just all kinds of things. And so she surprise tweeted me. And at first I thought it was kind of like a hoax, like someone was just like faking me out. But within the tweets, and I don't even know if we had DMs back then. We had to have, because somehow we exchanged actual information, or maybe she already had my email address. I don't know. But she said to me, I'm working on this project and I want you to work with me on it. And I'm like, cool. But at the same time, I'm like, meh, probably never going to actually happen. Long story short, it did happen. And I want to say that next Tuesday, we met up for dinner to discuss this project, this website. And this was another lesson in just jumping in and honing the courageous part of art and design. She was like, I want you to help me build a website. And I have this project that I'm working on. It's a contest and yada, yada, yada. And I was honest. I was like, well, I'm only in my second quarter here at SCAD, so I don't really know what I'm doing. And she had the grace enough to say, well, I don't really know what I'm doing either. I've changed a lot in my career, and I think that we can just figure it all out together. Let's just try. And so that was the beginning of, you can do anything that feels right, and you can have the courage to be that designer and to be that artist in that way that like spawns something new and creates not only cool, creative, imaginative projects, but also something that just makes you feel good and that is tying your imagination into your daily life. And so from there, I worked with India and I still do here and there, but for over 10 years. And what really came out of that whole thing was a really close friendship between the two of us that I cherish to this day and wouldn't take back for anything. So that also, I think, plays a part in my creativity, or the evolution of my creativity over time, is sticking to my guns in terms of visually creating things from being a kid all the way to growing up, and really deciding for myself, aside from someone saying, this is what I think you should be doing. Me taking the time to really decide what I should be doing and what I will feel good doing and will feel good about myself doing. And so, oh my gosh, my stomach is growling. I don't know if y'all hear that, but it's 4:30. I'm like hungry. Anyway, and so all this to say that, from there, I moved into user experience design, designing for, huge companies, and really changing my life in terms of like living well and living creativity. But more recently, I've just realized that my imagination is sad and that it's lacking all of those things that used to pump me up and make me feel really good about my imagination and creating things visually and using my eyes, and it doesn't help with the way 2020 has gone so far. Like, that part isn't helpful at all. And so I'm really looking at this moment, this time, as a quest to rebuild my vocabulary, of things that always make me happy no matter what, always make me feel inspired, always make me feel good, so that I can get back on track there, because having a sad imagination is exhausting. And so that's why I am making this content, is because it's the first step in the direction of making something that just makes you feel good. I have been making things for other people, pretty much just making things for everyone else for years and years and years straight. I'll make little things here and there for myself, but it never feels enough. It never feels like I've truly accomplished a thing that I've made. And so that's where this content is coming from. I really just wanted to make a whole thing that I could call my own, that has nothing to do with anybody else, that is styled by me, that is not following someone else's style guide, or that is not following someone else's rules, that I can put out how I want to put it out, excuse me, not put out, but put it out. What the colors look like, what it sounds like. And although I know that because I'm a perfectionist, I'll find things that aren't perfect with it, I just wanted to do it anyway, because it's been a really long time that I've just done something that I've always wanted to do. And I also wanted to just kind of speak on my background and who I am creatively, who my authentic creative self is, I guess, and how I've arrived to where I am today, because I have not always had mentorship along the way. I try to help others or mentor others, I guess. I do have a lot of conversations with other artists and designers who are like, how do I make it to where I want to be artistically or in the design world? And I think that my background is a question that I always get. It always starts off with, well, how did you get started? And then I have to rattle through this quick story of, how I became an artist or how I became a designer. And I kind of wanted to create some content that kind of answers those questions for me. Some content where you could just listen to this and learn about me, maybe. I don't know if I'm saying everything that I want everybody to know, but I do feel like I'm saying things that I want people to know. And while I'm not sure that this will turn into another one or something else, I just wanted to be proud of this one and see what it inspires me to do next. This content, I would say, is what's taking place of the absence of being able to travel, being able to see my friends, being able to like touch people without kind of having that thing in the back of your head where you're worried about like getting sick, and going about my business like I'd like to. So if I'm going to be, for the most part, in solitude, since we all kind of are, I figured I would get some things off my chest now. I actually would like to see this turn into something more, maybe like a series of some sort, but I'm not necessarily promising that. But I will say that if you are inspired by this content and if you'd like to see more, I guess find some sort of way to contact me. I'm pretty sure there will be some sort of way to contact me connected to this. Find that and tell me what you'd like to hear. That's so weird because I don't even know what people want to hear or if people are interested in even hearing anything. And if no one wants to hear anything, I think that's okay because this is enough. But in the case that you do, feel free to reach out to me. And if there's something that inspires me to create another one of these, I will. And if not, then I won't put the pressure on myself to do so. But I do hope that I do. Um, Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Um, I don't think I have anything else to say, so I'll just let this fizzle out into the morning. It is almost 5 a.m. here, and I think that's enough. It's time to call it a night morning. I hope everyone is well. Stay safe, and thank you for being here with me.